Yes, man, we're Lonesome here, live
You
with
hearing me
Dr.
properly?
Dayton Campbell. Yes, Doc, a lot of people waiting, so you can talk to them.
Are you hearing me properly?
Yes, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Okay, great, great.
Yes, man. Yes. I was saying a lot of people waiting, so you can address them first and then we start talk, yeah?
Good evening, everyone, and my most sincere apologies for keeping you waiting. I had a meeting with the divisional candidates in Northwest Centre, the seat that I used to be MP for. As we have some prep towards the local elections. So I had a meeting with them. So I am just leaving that meeting so that I can facilitate this one.
All right, good, good. All right, the first thing I want to ask you, see, Dr. Campbell, um, I see the opposition with the 72 murders that committed in the first 17 days of this year, of this month, represent 24% increase over last year. The opposition, concern. Can you give me a rundown? Can you give the people a rundown on that? About the ruling, the government and all them angle the crime and everything. All them angling crime. Doc, you froze. Dr. Campbell, I can get a little bit of froze in there. Yeah. If it froze, Doc, you could just hang up and yes. Yeah, the mic mute. You mute your mic. Mic mute. Yeah. Can you I could just do this.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now. We're hearing you now. Yes.
Okay, the connection was giving some issue just now. Right, you're
Yes.
asking about the release from the party about the number of murders.
Yes. And the
Yeah, I
concern.
think I think all Jamaicans are concerned about the high levels of crime currently in the society. It has reached to a proportion now that, I mean, it seems as if it is getting to the doorstep of everyone. And the number was 72 after 17 days, but I think it went up to 85 after 19 days. So we're
Mm.
actually in a very dangerous trajectory because if it continues at this alarming rate, we're going to be well over 1,600 for the year. And so I think that the government has to take steps to arrest the situation. And I believe that the Prime Minister is playing too much politics with it. He has always played politics with crime. If you can recall, he said that persons, if they voted for the PNP, they would be the next victim. And if they vote for him and his party, they'll be able to sleep with the windows and doors open. Um, well, that has not been proven to be true. And to be frank, we have quite a bit of persons now who are scared in their homes. And I mean, I've heard the loud outcry from persons asking for the minister to be changed, for the commissioner to be changed. And the prime minister came to say that he still has full confidence in the minister. I don't know what parameter is using to make that decision. But the government has certain things that they need to do. One, they need to put a greater focus on the legislative agenda, the crime fighting efforts within the country. Two, they need to spend more effort and more time putting in place mechanisms in relation to gathering evidence and just clear up rate of these murders, because the deterrence to crime is not the severity of the punishment, it is the certainty of the punishment. And so what you find happening now is a knee-jerk reaction. So you find like the member from Western Westmoreland saying that people should be given 300 years in prison. I
Yes.
mean, if you will never convict the person, then the time you give them in prison, or whether or not you want to hang them, it doesn't matter if you can't convict them. What you really want to do is to be able to put mechanisms in place, from the space in the court, work on DNA, work on evidence gathering and other mechanisms so that you can have certainty of punishment. That is what will deter people from committing the crimes. They also need to focus on the hard policing issues, getting boots on the ground. And they have deceived the country into thinking that to get boots on the ground, you need to have a state of emergency. It is so not true. And they are fully aware that it is not true, but still they continue to perpetuate the lie. To get boots on the ground, you can use a Zozo, and the commissioner of police can also operationally do it. They can have curfews, they can have cordon and search. All of those things can be done. I think even the persons who say states of emergency work, when you talk to them further, what they'll say to you is that they like the increased presence of police within their community and they like the military within their community. And I think that is well established, that if you have increased police within a community and military, that you're going to have less crime in that community. So what they need to do is to blanket all of the hotspot areas. To just do one area, it will result in what we call the balloon effect. So if you can imagine having a balloon that is inflated, if you push the hair, you push the finger on one side, it moves the air from there and it pushes it somewhere else. That is what happens when you just put a state of emergency in one place. The criminals move from St. James and they get dislocated to St. Elizabeth or Manchester or Westmoreland or Hanover or wherever else. And it couldn't be that we're saying that a life in one parish is worth more than a life in another.
True, true. Freeze up again. Whoa. Yes, man. Freeze up again. You can hear me? Freeze up again. Yeah. I can hear you now.
I'm back again.
Yes, you're back again. Yes.
They need to focus on the softer things. So we're talking about engaging the peace management, PMI. We're talking about restarting the Unite for Change. We're talking about measures within the community that will break the cycle of reprisal. Because a lot of the murders that happen now is some form of reprisal for something that took place in the past. So you have to engage violence interrupters, persons of influence within the communities who can go around and talk to these persons and de-escalate a situation. In Augustown, which can be volatile at times, there was a year that they had 0 murders. And it wasn't because they had hard policing. It was the softer things that they were focusing on. Removing zinc fence, make people feel proud about their community. In some of these inner city communities, you have raw sewage running on the ground. It's like the poverty is palpably in those areas. You can feel it. It's like you're breathing it. They need to make it more that the people are proud of where they are from, develop the communities, train the youngsters, skills training. We all know that the devil find work for idle hands. So you have to train the young people so that they have something to do. They become employable and then get them employment so they can become productive members of the society. And they need to focus on the police force. It cannot be that we have a police force that is overworked, underpaid, and demotivated. They need to focus on the police force so we have a motivated force with men and women going out there to protect the citizens. I can't remember before this administration when I've seen police protesting the way I've seen them now. I can recall people having a sick out and those other things. But what I saw downtown a few months ago, I don't recall ever seeing that in my life, where police took to the street like that to protest. Normally they're trying to stop people from protesting like that, and they themselves ended up protesting. So it means that there's a certain level of dissatisfaction among the men and women of the security forces, and the government cannot ignore that. They have spent more money and they've gotten less results as an administration. And I'm not making a political point, but I'm looking at the numbers. The JLP administration between 2007 and 2011 compared to the PNP administration between 2012, 2016, and then the JLP administration again between 2016 and 2020. The PNP administration is 20% less murders than both of those JLP administrations. And what was done differently? It is those things. Stay Alert App, talking about Unite for Change, the Peace Management Initiative, and those things. Working with the police, ensuring that they have ambulance and those other things to pick them up when the persons get injured on the job. Ensuring that these persons that they feel worthy and they feel that they are contributing to the development of their country. And I've not seen that taking place in this government currently. And to be frank, it is worrying what is taking place. I have seen stray bullets cause children to be killed before. I can't recall somebody willingly slashing the throat of an innocent youngster. It is getting more and more barbaric by the day. And what the Prime Minister is seeking to do is seeking to blame the opposition for his inability to carry out his mandate. He's trying to blame the opposition. Now, if a government is trying to blame an opposition as to why they can't do something, it suggests that they have outlived their usefulness. Because why would you have a government in place if they are complaining that the opposition is stopping them from doing their job? And to be frank, for the Prime Minister to declare a ZOS or a state of emergency, he doesn't need any support from anyone. He can get up and declare that at any point in time. So even this argument that he cannot use the state of emergency, as much as I'm not advocating for it, because I'm not advocating for it to detain people against without charging them for prolonged periods of time. But if he was really convinced that it worked, he could literally come and declare a new one whenever the extension is voted against. He could declare a new one and he gets a new 14-day period. That is up, he could declare another one, but he is not convinced that it works. What he wants to do is to be able to say that the opposition voted against it. That's what he wants to do. So
Oh, so you
every
call that
single
playing
murder that takes
politics,
place,
right? You
he's
call
going to
that
go
playing
on a
politics.
platform to say it is because I don't have SOE. Now, when he had an SOE in Westmoreland, there was a young man that was at a PMI initiative. At the peace initiative, somebody walked up and killed him. At the very peace initiative. Even when he had a state of emergency in St. James for a year, murders were decreased in St. James. They were elevated elsewhere because of that same balloon effect that I spoke about. But in St. James, we still had 100 persons being killed. So the notion that everybody that dies, you get up and you say, well, it's because they voted against the state of emergency, is duplicitous and it's mendacious and it is in keeping with the character of this current Prime Minister, to the point where he would even go to church and defy the pulpit by carrying that nonsense that he knows to be false on the people's pulpit in the house of the Lord, and then to be crying. And these things, to me, tells me that he's about a show and he's not serious about doing the real things that are needed to arrest the crime monster.
So what about the PMI and the defund? Because at the time defund the PMI in 2019 or something, PMI said them get less money, so them couldn't carry out that kind of work. What if you from back the administration? What you will do different from this
No,
administration?
those things we have to re-engage those things, because it has what they said at the time was that it is too expensive and they're not seeing the reward for it. And I've asked the question, what value do you place on a life? Because I don't understand when they say it's too expensive. What are you suggesting? That there is a sum that is too much for you to pay to protect the citizens of the country? I'm not sure I'm understanding it, because when it comes to them looting the public purse, I don't hear any of them complaining. I've never heard one of them come out to say, well, this man has taken away X and Y money from the government and is affecting our children. But they are saying that they can't fund it because it's too expensive. I don't put price on people's lives like that. I think that we have to engage these mechanisms, because we know in these volatile eras that if somebody is killed, the people on the other side think that it is okay to go back and kill them, their family.
Yes, yes. Not hearing you. Not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. Sound? Yes. You can hear me? Can you hear me? Dr. Campbell, can you hear me? No, I'm not hearing any sound. Yeah? The sound? Yes. Coming up back now? Yes, man, not hearing the sound. Yes, that peace initiative, you know, them defund it. You can hear me now? Doctor, yeah, okay. Him coming on back because I'm sign off to come on back. Yeah. The peace initiative, I think them cut funding with that. And it was a good program. Because you have to have mediators. Sometimes the best thing, you know. when you have mediators, right? And them cut funding with that. Yeah, man. Okay. Them cut a lot of funding with that. And you know, we have to do something. We have to do something. And we have to do cut for the attached youths. The youths them who don't have no job and things like that, you know, because as Dr. Campbell say, you know, you find idle and find things to do, you know, all kind of things to do, you know, no job. A lot of kids leave school, a lot of young people leave school, no jobs. Thousands every year. You understand? And then them just eat a vital talk in there. You have a lot of revenge killing going on. That's a great problem. Very great problem. Yeah, we have a great problem there. And because see if we can get back Dr. Campbell. Mm-hmm. So we can get him back on. Yes, he might try restart people, yeah? Yeah, man. Yes, man. You understand? No, so we have to hear right now, you know, we have to hear what's going on because the opposition did make a statement about the murders, you know, and they want to work with the government and give them some, you know, work with them, give them some work with them and the crime, but it seems that the government not, you know, moving towards, you know, they must move in unity to fight crime too, you know. So if the opposition offer, you know, some advice, you know, something, you know, government you have to work with that, you know, to make the country, you know, better off, you know. Yes, man, because if we can care about that, make a hold on a minute here. Um, right, so in my rebooting his system. So hold on a minute. Yes, man. I'm trying to reboot the system here. Just giving some trouble right there. You know, so I'm going to talk to him. I could go and talk to him over. I said, I can go and talk to him over here before him come on back, you know. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I have a lot of questions to ask, you know. So I can ask them. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Biggest thing is corruption. Yeah, man. Yeah, we have a lot of questions to ask. We have to start asking because we want country for build, you know. We need the country for build. You know, people tired now and you know, people tired of go to bed hungry. We're tired of all these kind of little things, you know. You understand? We're tired of some empty promises. We're tired of boy, the country that's going turmoil. Hold on, back again. Yes, Dr. Campbell. Yes. Yes,
I
man.
got one call and everything just went downhill.
Okay, okay. Yes, man. As I was saying now, so them cut the money. What was the budget for the peace management initiative though? But them
I
saying don't
don't
have no
remember the
money.
exact figure now.
But hold on, because the government spend last year budget, the last fiscal budget with the police force is what $84 billion? Because them say them spend more money building
Yeah,
up
man,
and doing.
they've spent way more money than has been spent in previous years. But they've gotten
Okay, so
the
and them couldn't
results.
find
The
money.
results that they've gotten have been worse.
So the peace management initiative, it cost them $1 billion, 1 billion. Don't cost so much.
I don't want to say I really don't recall the number off the top of my head.
But them could not find that money, but them can find 88 billion to spend plus 26 billion for the soldier budget, for the army
They
budget.
just don't have the interest, the will to do it, in my opinion. They don't have the will to do it. And it's an investment in my mind that is worthwhile because, as I say, I don't know how do they put a price on a life. every life that we can save, we should take the opportunity to do so. And I think that what they have allowed themselves to do is to use political one-upmanship to discontinue some of the programs. The Stay Alert app, the Unite for Change programs, these are things that were working, and I think they just discontinued them because they are initiatives of the People's National Party. They didn't look at them for the value as to what they contributed to the National Security Ministry, but they looked on them just based on the political lens that they were viewing it from, to say that it is a PNP initiative. And I don't think that that is an approach that should be pursued in relation to matters of national security.
Because you can, if the government of Jamaica, you start something and it's working, them shouldn't politicize it.
They shouldn't.
And change, because a next party come in and take it and throw it away because this party carry it in, we don't want to use
The
it.
country will always have a problem if we take that approach. The approach that we have to seek to pursue is one where we continue with good policy and good programs. And to be frank, we haven't gotten the crime thing correct, you know. I'm not suggesting that the PNP got it right totally, but I'm saying that more things were right than what is taking place now. And it was heading in the right direction in the sense that you had a 25% reduction than the previous administration. So if the last Holness administration and this current one had continued on that path, maybe would have been below 1,000 murders now per year, because I think it was 2014 that we went down to 1,005, which was the lowest in about, I think it's the lowest since the turn of the 2000, if my memory serves me correct, or probably 2003 or 4 was 997 or somewhere there. But certainly in the last 20 years, is one of the lower numbers that we'd have had. If we had continued on that trajectory, kept those measures in place, continued to have the violence interrupters in the community to break in the cycle of reprisal, would have been better off today. But what they did, first thing was that Holness appointed a Minister of National Security in the form of Bobby Montague, who was promoted above his competence. And in that first year, the murders spiraled out of control back up to 1,600. And Montague was there talking about his uncle is a Wobia man and he's not afraid of who and this. And he's taking the thing for a big joke. We're talking about them saying they're ordering cars. We have citizens now who hear something outside of their dwelling, call the police, and the police cannot respond because they don't have a vehicle. What we have was the government pursuing a policy to get used cars. That's the first thing. A police car is used more than your car and mine, right? Because when we drive, we go to work, it's parked for the day. They're always on the go, responding to whatever calls. So the first thing that was ill-advised is that you're getting used cars. The second thing is that even though you said you're getting used cars, you haven't delivered a lot of them. About half of them have not been delivered, and the country has just moved on from that scandal, the used car scandal. There's been no accountability, no return of the funds, no delivery of the cars, and the country has just moved on. And we continue now where you have even people who are defending this government are in situations where they need the police and cannot get the police because the police don't have a vehicle, and they defend the government purchasing used car and not delivering them. It is like people are going against their own interests. I don't understand it.
So if you're part of farm back the other government, right? The next government in waiting, right? What you gonna do different from this administration? How them work? In other words, them pick them own commissioner. I see the DPP is supposed to leave, and them say no, you're not gonna leave. We're gonna give you a contract for the next 3 years, and then pick who them want to pick and full up, politicize the police force, the DPP, and all kind of thing. What the government gonna promise? What them gonna do different? Because it cannot work like this, It can't work like
Well,
this.
the first thing is that we need just decency to return to the office of Prime Minister. Decency. Because currently we don't have that in the office. We need a Prime Minister with integrity, whose words mean something, and who is seeking to govern for all Jamaicans and not always having a political consideration about everything that is done. So, you need to have somebody as well who has the acumen and the will to focus on the legislative agenda that is needed for the ministry, right? The different legislation that we put in place that they have at their disposal now that they're not using. So one, you need to focus on the legislative agenda. Two, you need to focus on how you on your clear up rate. There are mechanisms and things that you can do, as I said, um, to ensure that the system works better, that you have more time in the courts to deal with matters. Um, a great change was made when we decriminalized marijuana because that took a lot of cases out of the courts and freed up time for them to look at more serious matters. You have to look at the hardcore policing. There's always a place for it, right? Having boots on the grounds, there's always a place for that. You have to look at the attrition rate of police. How many of them are you losing annually? You have to then ensure that your training is sufficient to replace that which you're using and to fill the void that is there. Because I think that is about 7,000 police that the force is short by. It cannot be that you're training more soldiers than police. So there has to be a shift in that focus as well. You also now need to focus, as I said before, on the social intervention that is needed within the communities. So you're going to focus on putting those violence interrupters in the community. You're going to focus and resource the PMI, the Unite for Change, and all of these initiatives. You're going to make sure that the communities look like places that people want to dwell. By removing the zinc fence and doing the other things to uplift the spirit, removing the raw sewage from the place, collecting the garbage within the communities, ensuring that you're training the young people. We have too many young persons out of school who do not have a skill, don't have any way of matriculating to university. The devil will find work for idle hands. So we have to engage those persons, see what they're good at. It cannot be that we have an education system that seeks to make everybody into a lawyer, doctor, or a banker, or a pilot. That's how most of the schools operate. You go into 10 science, 10 arts, 10 business, 10 technical, because the system is done in a way like it's a conveyor belt. You could have somebody who would have been the best chef. There's no way this man is the best chef that could possibly exist. And there's no way to provide a track for him within the system so that he can go along that path. Somebody would have been the best carpenter, the best plumber. The system has to be designed that way. Albert Einstein once said that if you ask a fish to climb a tree, he will live his entire life thinking that he's stupid. And I'll tweet by saying, but if you put him in the water, then you would see his real talent. So you have to be able to find these young people that are there, that are unattached, and attach them to something that is not a gang, that is not criminal related. Attach them to something that is worthwhile, that will lead to the development of the country. And you have to ensure that your police force, that they are catered to. These are men and women who sacrifice. They work more than 40 hours. They work on average, I think, about 60 to 80 hours per week. You have to ensure that their overtime, they are compensated for it. You have to ensure that when they get injured, that there's something in place to deal with them, and that when they die on the job, that their family members can put them away with some decency, and there's something that is there for them. So all of these issues, you have to be able to deal with them at once. It's not a matter. They love to ask this question: what would you do now? There is no magic bullet, There's no panacea for the fixing. You have to commit to doing certain things. And that commitment needs to span across administrations as well. And if you're able to do those things, then just maybe we'll be able to have a Jamaica that we will be pleased to raise our families there and do business.
All right. So some people want me to ask about the NHT because we see the building go up the other day. They want to hear about the NHT and what taking place in the NHT.
Well, again, it's one of the areas that the Prime Minister was most disingenuous about. So the NHT has been supporting the budget of the country for a long time. It started in about 2012, 2013, where $11 billion annually goes from the NHT to support into the consolidated fund to support the country's budget. I mean, when it started, we were in a rough spot. We're at a point where international partners did not want to assist us with anything. People didn't want to hear from us. Former Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller had to call on the Black Caucus within the states and some good people and use all the charisma and the goodwill that she has to get them to just listen to us. We're able to get an IMF agreement. This is after the Labour Party abandoned it. We're able to get an IMF agreement, and there were certain things that we had to do. At that time, the decision was Well, you have some money saving to buy a car, but your house is leaking. So you just have to buy some zinc. You just have to deal with the roof. So yes, we have the NHD money there to provide housing for the poor contributors, but the country was on the brink of failure. So we had to use it at that time to support it. We were roundly criticized by the government at the time for doing so. And fast forward, they've continued to do so, even though the country is not in the same position. The debt to GDP ratio has been brought down from 140 where it was, all the way down, heading towards single digit, I believe. Now, I believe that every single contributor to the NHD should get a benefit. So the other day, I'm talking to a porter at the hospital. I'm the doctor and I'm talking to the porter at the hospital. I qualify for a benefit from the NHD. He doesn't qualify for a benefit. But the NHD takes out a contribution from both of our salary. Now, the contribution that NHD takes from his salary is more significant in terms of he has a smaller salary, so it has a greater impact on him than what it does on my salary because I work more. And he's the one who doesn't stand to get a benefit. It would be akin to throwing a partner and the banker tell you that you don't have a draw to get. It is wrong. I can't see how we have allowed this to be perpetuated for so long. When the former leader, the revered leader of the PNP and former Prime Minister Michael Manley conceptualized the NHD, it was for the poor contributors to be able to benefit. So if you make a contribution, there must be some way of you gaining a benefit from it. We have approximately 750,000 people in this country that they call squatter. Now, these are not people that came here from somewhere else. This is the country of their birth.
That is my problem.
What do you
Yes.
mean when you
Yes.
call a man in the country of his birth a squatter? I don't understand it. Where is he supposed to go? So what we need to do, the next administration, and it probably needs to start from before, if they have the will. We have to look at how we are going to provide some decency to these people so that they can have a roof above their heads. We have children now who are in houses when it rains, it pours on their beds. They're putting pots and cans, setting pots and cans in their house and those other things. We have to be serious, and make a seismic shift in how we cater to especially those in the society who are not able to cater for themselves, those who are marginalized and downtrodden. We have to provide an opportunity for those persons to be able to have the dignity to live in a home and provide some security for their families. And so I believe that the first thing that we have to do is to ensure that everyone who contributes gets a benefit. So if somebody is poor and they are not able to finance a mortgage, then that person should get a grant. That person should get a grant from the NHD. That grant could be used as a partnership with Food for the Poor to provide them with one of the units that Food for the Poor provides. It is just about $8,000, I believe, $6,000 to $8,000 for them to US for them to build one of those 2-bedroom board houses. So those people who can't afford to repay a mortgage should get a grant and partner with Food for the Poor to build one of those. The other persons who can afford it, the houses that we're building in this country now, where we are selling a 2-bedroom house that you can build for $5 million, for $30 million. It is akin to extortion. And I cannot understand what is going on in the housing market in Jamaica. Because what they're selling the houses for, if you look at the houses that they're selling, if you were to go into rural Jamaica and build a house yourself, the monies that they are charging, you'll be able to build a monstrosity, a mansion, similar to the one that the Prime Minister have. You'll be able to build one of those down in country if you were to able to use those $50 million that I see them charging in Kingston. No house that is built by the NHD should be priced out of the reach of the average contributor to the NHD. None. Because that's not the NHD is not a bank, it's not a private developer doing something, It is
This is people
designed for
contributing
poor
money.
contributors, not just
Good.
the poor contributors to get a home. So it's like all of us pooling together so that those who are less fortunate among us can have something that they can own a house from. Because I can go to the bank and the bank will give me a mortgage. The porter can't go to the bank. So he has to rely totally on the NHT. So when the NHT says to him that you don't qualify, you're leaving him without hope. Because if he doesn't qualify with the NHT, where else is he going to go?
So the original thing was Michael Mandy set up the NHT for most of the poor people that they can have a
poor
home.
Contributors. So not the man who doesn't contribute, the poor contributor.
The poor contributors. But let's switch it now, because I see some homes selling for 37 million. No one in that poor category cannot even afford. A matter of fact, you have police and nurses. Them have to put together maybe to get a $8 million home, to get a loan, one of those NHT loan to buy a.
But that root vent property.
Yes.
If two doctors came together, the NHT wouldn't be able to afford. They could get it through NHT, you know. They still would have to go to another financial institution. If two police officers, two teachers came together and they get the mortgage, both of them got the benefit, they still wouldn't be able to afford it, because the NHT currently offers $6.5 million. So two of them together would get 13. They still wouldn't be able to afford a $30 million property. That cannot make sense in my view.
Wow, this out, completely out. That need to change. The next thing with the NHT before we move on, you have a lot of people get NHT home, buy links, and then rent it out. That the government, if you form the next government, you people have to search out these things and make it cut off. Take some of these home and redistribute it back to some of these people, some of these first-time owners, because it cannot work. One man cannot own 5 or 10 NHT home and then rent it and use your money, pay mortgage for it. Him own it. That don't make any sense.
No, I'm surprised. One person is owning 5.
One person own more than one. One person, because it's link. Them doing it with links and all kind of things. So them need to pull up the belt and check.
That's the corruption that has interwoven itself
because
into this current
a person
dispensation.
Own a home different from NHT home and where they own uptown and something, live in our next home, live all right, and yes, they have all support more than one. Something wrong.
Well, I mean, if he's getting it through the NHT outside of the stipulated period that you can get a second mortgage, then it is wrong. I do not support that. I believe that, as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, I believe that every single person who makes a contribution to the NHT should stand to gain a benefit from it. And I'm wondering what is going on, because I'm saying to myself, if I was negotiating with teachers and police and I couldn't give them a raise, I have all of this land available in this country, I would cut it up and put it on the table, you know. I cut it up and put it on the table for them to get a piece of land, since I can't give you the 10% that you deserve. I can't give you the 20% that you do. Hold this quarter acre over there, hold that quarter acre over there, right? Let them regularize it, pay their property tax and those things. So I'm getting resources that I would not have gotten otherwise. And they are using it and they are developing the place and commercial activity, so you continue to get indirect tax and all of those things from them. So either way, the government would still benefit. I just don't think we've had the will to really transform this place in the way it really needs to be, and to look out for the people the way we need to. The police, the teachers, the nurses, those people, the security guards, those people who hold this country together. I don't think we have really made that effort to really reach out and assist them. And I think we have to do so.
So why the government, and next thing we want to ask, why the government have so much red tape when it comes to the poor? Like, people see sending barrels, just some barrels. The amount of money people have to use clearing these barrels, it's heart-wrenching. Why the government look so much taxes off of these barrels, off of, poor people. You know, you send a barrel, someone in the diaspora sending a barrel for a family member too. And the amount of money them charging, even for just a little laptop or an iPad, it's heart-wrenching. What if your government go back, you found the government, what you going to do different from this administration to make sure you clear up these things that people, better off of these people who don't have it, and family member trying to help them?
But, I think that some of the times I have to wonder to myself if the system is designed to keep the people poor. Because At times, it seems almost as if there's a coordinated plan and effort to keep certain people in the society down. Because if you're looking at it, some of it doesn't make any sense. Some of it makes absolutely no sense at all. An individual is here who is struggling. Someone out of the family gets an opportunity to go away, and they're sending back some things. They may be sending back some things so that person can, do a little commercial activity and make some local money so that they're not totally dependent on them, but they can help themselves. And the way the system is structured, it's structured in such a way that it discourages them, it frustrates them, it puts them in a position that they can't afford to do anything to help themselves. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why the crime rate ends up where it is. Because people then just get frustrated, they feel there's no way out, and then they just turn to a life of crime. Because we have to look at these things. And I am saying we have to be very deliberate as a next PNP administration in looking at some of these inequalities that exist within the society, and we have to right the wrongs that are there. There are some systemic things that are there that we have to change. And some of them, I am not blaming the Labour Party for some of them, because some of them have been there for both administrations. But there are some systemic things that are there that we need to change in order to make life easier for the people of this country. And somebody has to stand up, put up their hand, and be willing to make those changes. And the next administration that we're putting forward has to be able to do those things.
Yeah, because this red tape really holding back a lot of poor people. The red tape holding back a lot of poor people. Because it cannot be someone of a child going to school and an aunt has said, I'm going to send you a laptop or an iPad, but he still custom hold it and said, you have to pay me 80% or 100% to clear this. Come on now.
Well, the next thing is that I mean, Comrade Julian Robinson has been calling for it for over a year. I cannot see how in a pandemic where we do not have enough devices to give to children, we do not have the connectivity for some of these children, we know the value of education, and we know the ills of not getting education. I cannot understand why government continues to charge duties on electronic devices that are being used for educational purposes. To me, this is what I mean when I say sometimes it seems as if the system is designed for people to fail and to suffer. If we're in a pandemic,
for the poor to fail,
you
the
have
poor.
the information that X amount of students are not going to school. And the only way to get to those persons would be to get, at the primary level, a tablet in their hand. At the high school, you more want a laptop in their hand, based on what the studies have shown. Why would you not do everything you can to make that process of getting the electronic device to them easier? Why would you put some form of tape, red tape in the way, some sort of hindrance in the way to that happening? I would think that the government cannot provide it. You would be like, okay, let's get some suppliers to bring them in and ensure that they sell it to the student at a reduced cost by us waiving these things. So at least people will be able to get a device in the hands of their children. The learning loss that we've had because of this pandemic is going to cause another pandemic in this country. Not related to COVID, but related to illiteracy. The learning loss that we've had from this pandemic, the number of students that are out of school, that are underperforming, some that have now gone to try their hand at business, making a dollar because they have to be helping out the family. We are going to have a significant crisis in this country in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years if we don't do something urgently to repair that loss that has been created.
Another thing I want to ask about, I notice a lot of foreign workers flood Jamaica. The last time them have some interviews in the paper, the Chinese community said them have over 100,000 came in now working in Jamaica. But I think as a country, on the way you send for certain workers, unless you cannot provide it, you don't have it in Jamaica. But you have people mixing cement, you have people owning shop, owning all these kind of things, but our people can't get a job. What the administration going to do about it if you form the next administration? Because it can't work, so you know.
You have to break that system that is designed to work against the people. So when you have laborers, visitors coming into the country, they have to get a permit, a work permit from the Ministry of Labor for them to be able to work. All that it requires is a government with the testicular fortitude to stand up for the people that they represent and to say to them, well, if you are coming in for a major project, remember that majority of the times these are loans, these are not grants,
These are
majority of these
loans.
projects, are things that we have to pay back, that my children and grandchildren will have to pay back. So, I mean, sometimes they're treated almost as if we think that it is a grant and we just give up all our rights. They're not. They're loans. And just like how you have conditions if you go to the bank for a loan, we should have conditions as well. And I believe that we should accept where we can to get the development, but we should make it absolutely clear that you can bring in skilled laborers. If there's something that we are not able to offer here, you can bring in those persons. But when it comes to just the routine laborers on a site, all of those persons should be Jamaicans. All of them should be, right? Only the skilled persons, whatever tradesmen you need that have a particular skill set. And even in those positions, you should have an apprenticeship period where you get
That I'm talking
local
about.
persons to work alongside them so that eventually they can start doing those work. So either on that project or when they move to the next project, you'd have had persons now who are competent locally to be able to carry out those duties. It cannot be that we facilitate another country exporting their people to get employment in Jamaica and then sending back that money. So they give us the loan and then they end up sending back the money to their country at the end of it. It can't be. There's reduced benefit from doing it that way. So I think that whoever goes to the Ministry of Labor in the next administration will have to have, and I'm quite sure that Comrade Leader Mark Golding will give them the charge, that they have to look out for the workers of this country and they have to ensure that we take steps to protect their interests and to protect the opportunities that are available to them and do not allow it to be taken away from foreigners who come here.
Because I mean, we don't have any work already. Around 40 over 40,000 kids leave school every year. No, you don't have a job to place them in. But yet still foreigners come here and working like crazy.
You have foreigners in hotels. You have foreigners in hotels singing Bob Marley
music.
This
work? How it work?
Foreigners in hotels singing Bob Marley music. And I'm saying, what? With an accent, singing Bob Marley music, when we can get entertained. We have so many people here that can go and work in the entertainment industry in the hotels. So I'm saying that the next government, the Minister of Labor, has to ensure that those persons are not given any work permits to come and do those things, unless it is an area that they have a specialized skill in, and even so, they must work alongside with somebody teaching them that skill.
All right, as a medical doctor, right?
Yes, sir.
I know Dr. Tufton is just a doctor on paper. You're a medical doctor.
Yeah, there's doctor and there's doctorate.
Yeah, all right. So I'm talking to a medical doctor. We see we have a chronic problem in the hospital. The hospital completely one overall. Plus dialysis short and people don't even have money to pay for that. What if you found back the next administration? What are you going to do about this? Because we can't have people like this. We can't have people like this don't have nothing in health service.
So I have a criticism and I have a commendation.
Yes.
Let me start with the commendation. I actually commend Dr. Tufton for the Jamaica Moves initiative, because majority of the persons who end up with kidney disease requiring dialysis, they are the hypertensive or diabetic, which are lifestyle illnesses. And so by putting in a program such as Unite for Change, it is not an all-encompassing program by itself, because there are other things that you need to focus on, dietary things. There are some things that are just family related, that and early treatment and screening and those things that you have to do to really arrest the problem. But certainly, moving away from a sedentary lifestyle by exercising assist, because it has been shown that sedentary lifestyle obesity is a risk factor for some of these things. So I give him some commendations for that. But I have to also level some serious criticisms as well, because I do not believe that he has, in a real way, dealt with the problems within the health sector. And I know it is challenging. I'm not suggesting that it's not challenging. It is challenging. But I don't think he has in a real way there. And why do I say that? In 2017, I went to shadow the Ministry of Health in 2017. We started having a conversation about the situation at Cornwall Regional Hospital. It was said that that would have been completed by the end of 2017. That target keeps on moving. We are now in 2022, and we are nowhere near the completion of that facility.
What's
So
the
when I see
budget?
people giving credit and saying that, boy, this is a great man and this is great things, I'm saying, but what is it that you're using to measure this greatness that you're bestowing upon him? Because if you have, remember now you rank hospitals, you have type C hospitals that you only get internal medicine, surgery, pediatrics, and obstetrics. You have type B hospitals that you get orthopedics and some additional services there, right? And then you have type A hospitals where you get ENT, neurosurgery, ophthalmology, and those things. In Jamaica, we have 3 type A hospitals: the University Hospital of the West Indies, Kingston Public Hospital, and Cornwall Regional Hospital. 3. 2 of them are in Kingston and St. Andrew. 2 of them are in Kingston and St. Andrew. So Cornwall Regional is a bastion in Western Jamaica because everybody who is on this end, that's where they would have to go if they need neurosurgery, if they need intensive care, if they need ENT, ear, nose, and throat, if they need dermatology or any one of those specialized services. None of those services are operating optimally at this point in time. There are patients who have to be moved to Falmouth to do a surgery. There are people who are still being seen under a tent. This is 5 years after we identified the problems in Cornwall. 5 years later, we're still at the same position almost, and very little has changed. And I saw he put a team in place with Professor MacDonald, former principal of the University of the West Indies, who came out recently to say that he has not heard from the minister or the contractor or anybody in recent times. That's what he said late last year, that he hasn't heard from them in months. So I'm just saying to myself that I don't think that there's a real effort being made to fix these problems. You can't get radiology service at a certain level, for instance, a CT scan or MRI, in a facility that is not type A. So for instance, at St. Anne's Bay, which is a regional hospital and a type B hospital, serving all the way from Portland coming back to St. Anne, you can get an X-ray done, you can get an ultrasound done, but if you or your grandparents or your parents were to have weakness in one limb and slurred speech, and we're thinking it's a stroke, and they needed a CT scan, you know what happens? They go to St. Anne's Bay, they write a request, give them to go into Ocherius or into Jacksall privately to pay $22,000 or $28,000 to get the CT scan done. That's what currently happens. If you cannot afford that, you're going to stay on that bed. Either you recover or you become a vegetable. Because when we think you have a stroke, a CT scan is needed because it can be caused by one of 2 things. It could be a clot in your brain or it could be a bleed. If it is a clot, you're going to be given things to thin the blood. However, if it is a bleed and you give them something to thin the blood, you're going to make the bleeding worse. So the scan must be done before you start the treatment. Now, if you do not have the scan available and the person cannot afford it, what is going to happen? You are going to be unable to really intervene. Because
and that person
if it
can
is a
lose their
bleed,
life.
you don't
That person
know,
can lose
and
their
you don't
life.
have the neurosurgery team to intervene, and if it's a clot, you don't know, therefore you can't give the anticoagulants, the things to thin the blood. And that is the situation in this country. And if I get up and I say that, you have persons who are poor people living in, for instance, in St. Anne, who, if they get sick, that's the very reality that they're going to encounter. And they would chastise me for saying so. And I'm saying so to their benefit, that this needs to be fixed so that when we get ill and go to St. Anne's Bay, we can get proper care. Now, in my mind, there has to be a minimum acceptable standard of care every time you interact with the public health sector. That is not currently in place. In my mind, The
Yes.
next administration have to ensure that there is a minimum acceptable standard of care for every single Jamaican who interface with the public health sector. So you're saying, well, at least we're at this basic standard that is met for everybody that comes to us, right? Those that we can't see, there must be an efficient system in place to get them to a different facility where they can be seen. So if an individual needs the scan, either we're going to get the machine at St. Anne's Bay by upgrading the facility there, or we're going to have to put some system and mechanism in place where they can be brought to another facility without them incurring this ridiculous cost, which majority of them cannot afford, and they can be treated. When you spoke earlier about dialysis, you know what currently happens in Jamaica when you get kidney failure? You pray for somebody to die, you know. That is what happens currently, you know. People might not want to say it, but I'll say it bluntly as that. You pray for somebody to die. Why? Because you can only get dialysis in the public system in a few facilities. You cannot be dialyzed at St. Anne's Bay Hospital. You have to go to Cornwall or Mandeville or go back to those two hospitals in Kingston. Now, if the list at Cornwall is already filled and your kidneys go bad today, you are going to have to pay $10,000 2 or 3 times per week to get the dialysis done. Now, forget about any poor person affording that, right? So what they have to do, they literally pray that somebody dies so they can be put onto the list. That's what happens. Because if they don't, if somebody doesn't die for them to get on the list, they have to pay for it privately, or they're just going to stay there until they die. We need to also look at organ transplant in this country, which is probably the most altruistic thing that somebody can do, is to say, all right, let's transplant a kidney in somebody whose kidneys have failed. So at least they won't be dependent on dialysis for the rest of their lives. So we have to, I just don't think we have done enough. I think most persons that come to this thing, there's a lot of tinkering and they just manage the variables that they're given. We need some persons who will push the envelope and do things to deliberately change the outcome of the Jamaican people.
Okay, so somebody, make us say, make us read something to you fast, right? Because Dixon, when Dr. Dayton Campbell was Minister of Health, I don't know about that, you know, Dr. Dayton Campbell here, hospital across the island have same problem. You was a Minister of Health at any time?
I've never been Minister of Health. I'm
This
happy
is
that he thought.
misinformation. That's
I'm
why
happy
I
that
asked,
he thought
because
that I
I
was
can answer
Minister.
it, you know, but make you talk, yeah? Because him just write this. And that's why I just read it to you, because, you know, sometimes, you know, them now
I
have
was
the
never
facts.
Minister of Health. So I
Okay.
did 2 terms in
You was a
Parliament.
spokesperson of Health.
Right.
The
I did 2
spokesperson.
terms in Parliament. 2 terms. My first term,
Okay.
I won when I was 28. That's 2011. I did that first term and I was on the backbenches. That the PNP was in government. I was on the backbenches. In my second term in 2016, we lost the election. I was in opposition, therefore I could not have been a minister. I was a spokesperson for health, for the party, the opposition spokesperson. And enough people in Jamaica do not understand the process of governance in the country that the opposition can talk and make recommendations, but the persons who are in charge, who determine policy, is the executive, the government, the cabinet of the day. The minister in a particular ministry is who determines the policy that they carry out. We can say anything we want when we are in opposition. Nothing changes unless the minister agrees to do it. And so I think a lot of people, they get up and they say, then why don't you do this or why don't you do that? Because a lot of people think that once you're in parliament, that you are a minister. Some of them even call you minister, you know, out on the street, because they confuse being member of parliament with being minister. It's not the
Yeah.
same thing, right? It is the government, the cabinet, the elected persons who can make policy on those things and put the programs in place. So all I was able to do was to point out where I thought that something was going wrong and to make recommendations. And I continue to make those recommendations. Look at COVID now. It is irresponsible for the Prime Minister to say, argument done. I don't know what he means when he says that. Why, I don't know what he means. Let us walk through this. It is possible for you to be vaccinated, and I am vaccinated, by the way. My family is vaccinated, and I encourage people to be vaccinated because it lessens the likelihood that you will get ill severely. However, you can still become ill. So if it is that if I'm vaccinated, I can still become ill, and if I have comorbidities, I can still end up in hospital. So it is possible that if all of us were to go and get vaccinated, we could still have the hospital system being overburdened. Therefore, it cannot be vaccination or nothing. There are several other things that the Prime
So
Minister
the
can
Prime
do.
Minister just come and all right. So when this thing come up, right, and the Prime Minister use the crime management and then start to charge people for that mask and then doing a lot of things, but some heavy charge, some heavy money. But I see them have a minister drinking and saying everything, and the police don't find nothing wrong because them looking for some hotel video, and I know that was a phone video, right? Them looking for some hotel videos, so them couldn't charge the minister. And as the minister turned back, minister now, we on good him to apologize, step down, and then them promote him again. Give me your take on that.
It's a part of the two Jamaica that we've been speaking about. There are two different rules that exist in the country. There are rules for those who are from a lower socioeconomic class, and there are rules for those who are from a higher socioeconomic class. It's just two Jamaicas that exist. Even the Prime Minister himself, when he went on one of those visits to the UK, he was seen at a reception with, I think, Prince Charles and others, and he wasn't wearing any mask. Whilst there was the mandate that you wear a mask, I'm wondering if COVID was not there, because at that time you had more COVID cases in the UK than you did in Jamaica. But when he went there, decided not to wear a mask. When he comes here, then the dictate is that you have to wear it. But I'm just saying that the approach that he has taken now is irresponsible. It is very irresponsible, and I am appalled when I see people defending it. The doctors, the MAJ, the JMDA, the Nurses Association, all of them have said, look, it cannot be argument done. Why? Because you have to take steps to ensure that you don't overburden the health sector, or it will crash. It is already fragile. If you are going to have your doctors and nurses becoming infected and going out on isolation, whilst the patient load is doubling or tripling at the hospital, you can see it doesn't take any smart person to realize that if you have half of the staff you normally have with 2 times the patient that you normally have, that they're going to get burned out and the system is going to crash. So why would you say argument done and leave it at that? It is personal responsibility to an extent. I cannot determine that I'm going to work from home. That has to be a directive coming from government or from the private sector if the government isn't doing it. But you are looking at tax office, you're looking at government agencies where you're seeing massive crowds and those other things. The directive to say, all right, work from home, that has to come from the government. That's not something you talk about personal responsibility. Providing proper PPEs to the hospitals so that the doctors and nurses are protected. It's not something that they should take on by themselves. That's something that the government has to provide for them. Providing the vaccine for the children who are between the ages of 5 to 12 is not something that they can do for themselves. The government has to procure it and then make it available. So to take this position to say the strategy is go and get vaccinated, as if to say that solves all our problems, is disingenuous. Either it is disingenuous or it is rooted in ignorance. Because if you just look at other countries where you have vaccination rate 3 times ours, for instance, let us go north and look at the US with their 60% vaccination rate. They had one day this month when more than 1 million persons were infected.
Yes.
More than 1 million persons in one day. And they have 60% vaccination. We have 22%. So the suggestion to just that the strategy is go and get vaccinated is one that I think the Prime Minister should withdraw hurriedly. And I think he needs to sit down with the ministry team and allow the professionals to have a say in the management of this thing. I am not suggesting lockdowns, because I know the problem with lockdown, because when you do the lockdown, if COVID not killing the people, they're going to die from hunger. So I'm not suggesting that. But I'm saying that there are measures that you can put in place to lessen the burden at a particular time. And if the burden gets too high, no one will be able to carry it and it will crash the system. And then if the health sector crashes, then all the efforts that you're making to try and save the economy will come to naught.
Okay. Some people asking about the burnt unit now because we have more roads, more highways than putting in. But how much burnt unit we have in Jamaica currently?
In those type A facilities again. So you will have one. There's one at Cornwall Regional, but it's not in use. Why? Because the building has been gutted. So it's just there. So that's what I'm trying to say to persons, that I'm
So
appealing to my labor right
two
friends who are
burnt
listening.
units in the whole
I think
island?
KPH has one as well. The type A
See?
facilities. I'm not sure if Mandeville has one. I'm not sure if
No,
Mandeville Regional has one.
because the man that when the gas station exploded,
Right.
and that
They
man
have
they
to
get
move
the
him to
burn,
Kingston.
them have
Right.
transferred into UE. So
Right.
UE in the you have more road putting in more roads now and everything, and vehicle and everything, and you have more two burn units working or one UE. That don't make any sense. We need to
I'm not
upgrade
sure
all
what
these
is the state
hospitals.
of play at KPH currently, but I know the one at Cornwall, the last time I visited, the building was still gutted, so it wasn't operational. But I'm just saying, and I'm appealing to, once a politician is talking, people think that, oh, it's politics. But I don't know. Or else to say the point and to express genuine concerns, right? By saying that I'm using the collective pronoun, we need to fix these things. It cannot be that we're living in a country where these things obtain and it doesn't bother our conscience to move towards fixing these things. It has to prick our conscience, and the bowels of compassion must be moved to fix some of these things. If we continue at this rate, what we are going to have perpetuating in the society is the two Jamaicas, because guess what? When you have resources and you get ill in Jamaica, the proper care is afforded to you. And if it can be afforded here, you're flown to Miami. But there are some people, I think it was Buju Banton that said it, those who can afford to run will run. What about those who can't? They will have to stay. So there are some persons who are not able to run anywhere. And therefore, it is our duty to ensure that there is a minimum acceptable standard of care that they get every time they go to a hospital.
You know what I want to ask, and what I want to say to you. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to suggest something to you. I feel that hospital in Jamaica, if the politician and the big man them don't use public when them sick, Princess Margaret, Anatabia, these hospital, no one's supposed to use it. Them supposed to upgrade these hospital that anywhere you're sick, you don't leave the island, you use the hospital. It's supposed to be usable for everyone. But it can't be because I don't have the money. Me can't fly out and get the best treatment. But I have to use what me have. And yet still it broken down. That's the sin. And it's a
It's a
human.
serious problem. I'm on record as saying, that some of the people who die in rural Jamaica would not have died if they were in Kingston. And some of the people who die in Kingston would not have died if they were in Miami. I'm on record saying that because that is the truth. The very example with the CT scan is one such example. A man that is up in Bridge in the hills of St. Ann that gets a stroke. Alexandra Hospital has been downgraded. If he goes there, they will send him on right down to St. Anne's Bay. When he gets to St. Anne's Bay, he's going to need the scan. If he cannot afford the scan, he's going to stay there, right? And he possibly will die. If he was in Kingston, he would have gotten a scan. They would have known what it is. If it's a bleed, they would have called the neurosurgery team. They would have gone in. They would have decompressed to take out the blood so that you can reduce the pressure. Or if it's a clot, they would have done whatever they can to thin the blood to try and prevent any progression of it. So he might stay alive. You have others who are in Kingston and are in certain facility with a heart attack, don't have the money, therefore they can't get the medication to break up the clot, the thrombolytics we call it, or they can't get the intervention to go in and put in the stent or whatever like that, which if they were in Miami, they would have been able to get that and they would have been able to recover. So I'm just saying that we have to look at the problem, note where we are, not suggesting that we blame one party for where we are, because God.
You get a call again. Whoa. Get a call again. Whoa. Yes, man. Yes. Get a call again or something. So in phone freezes. Yeah. Man, people, it hard, very hard, for you, you know, if you sick, you have to use Kingston Public. Anyway, what? You have to use just hospital, right? All right, back up. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, good, good. Yes, man. So yes, as I was saying now, with the hospital, as I was saying with the hospital, as I was saying, yeah, if the hospital don't good for these people, the politician and the big man to use, it don't good for no one in Jamaica. You understand? Them have to upgrade the
We have
hospital.
to upgrade them.
You know, before you say something, I seen the house Mallow Fort have a faint spell, and them have to carry out to you, not Kingston Public, but I think of UE. And it hurt me because Kingston Public just the right there. But they still them have to remove her and carry her straight up a UE, and that don't make any sense to me.
It is what happens all the time. Last year, one of the candidates in the seat that I was MP for, one of the councillor candidates, had sudden loss of consciousness and everything, and went to St. Anne's the hospital. When I got the call, I said, boy, let us try and get him out of there as soon as possible and get the scan done. And I called down by hospital because I used to work there, and I called there to say, all right, let's try and arrange to get the scan done down there, get the ambulance to take him. We pay for a private ambulance just to get him there. We want to see what's going on. They didn't send him out. They didn't send him out from the hospital. He stayed in the hospital. Went to work in the night at Andrews. And when I went there, I saw Pernell's son, Dr. Charles, who's a neurosurgeon. I was explaining the situation to him and that, you know, this is the situation. And he said, send him to Andrews, he will see him. And, you know, the conversation continued to and fro, to and fro. The end of the story is that he didn't get to Kingston until the following morning at about 4 o'clock. This is from being at St. Anne's Bay from 9 o'clock in the morning the previous day. You know. He didn't get to Kingston until the following day at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And by the time morning broke, he was dead. So
That
I'm
I'm
saying that
talking about.
this is the real situation that faces persons within this country. And I don't know how else to express it, that it requires us to draw a line in the sand. It doesn't matter who was there before or who this and that and all of those things. What we need to do is to draw a line in the sand. And so this is where we are. It is unacceptable where we are. We need to move forward, right? And if an individual is not willing to move the thing forward, then you should get out of the way and give somebody else a chance to do so.
And next big problem we have, right? Police in Kingston, anywhere at all over Jamaica. If you have an accident scene, police on the scene, police taking up the victim, whether gunshot, accident, or anything, police have to take up that victim. Don't train as a paramedic, only by your hand and foot and just throw in a back of a jeep and drive you. What about the ambulances and the paramedics and these things? You're a doctor, come on, these things have to change.
Well,
Just like I can go to, it's just like them just sacrificing people. It does wrong. It
you
totally
see
wrong.
that emergency response team?
Yes.
We don't have it like that here in Jamaica. So if you're in the States, you have EMTs galore. You know, you can call, you get an ambulance, persons come, they know how to lift a person, you know, they support the cervical spine, they do all of that. In Jamaica, is one of two things happen when you have a crash. And I made the suggestion before that we should train all of our firemen and police and those persons in first aid, CPR, so they know the basics of resuscitating a patient. All of them, those persons, emergency personnel, should be so trained that they can respond and provide some assistance to these persons. Because if there's an accident in Jamaica now, or somebody calls you that somebody fell at their home or wherever it is, or accident on the road, that's exactly what they do. Either they're there busy with their phones, taking pictures and videos, or the few persons who decide to help, they just hold them and just pull them in any way, right? To think them. And it may result in, if the person has a fracture in the cervical spine and neck, as people say, them broke them neck. If they have one of those and you just pull the person like that, it is likely that the edges of the bone that was broken will then cut or damage the spinal cord, and it is damaging it high, all the way in the neck. So everything below that is not going to function. So it is an important thing to just teach first responders how to manage these situations. In the States, you have persons who, and this is first world country, so I'm not necessarily comparing the two, but I'm suggesting that if we had at each fire station, each police station, a basic kit, and these persons are trained in CPR, then they'll be able to respond to some of these things. So they'll be able to go to an area, they have an AED, they can put it on the person, it delivers a shock by itself, if there's a shockable rhythm that is there. It's a similar thing to where we have moved now at sporting events, because we realized that we had some persons just falling down and died. And I've seen a report coming out of the UK that sudden death has increased among sportsmen since the COVID pandemic. So, it's something now that at every football match, it's a football match, you see an ambulance there. Because we have realized that you have to have this staff there that is able to respond to some of these things. That should be my proposal from the time I was shadowing health, is that we should train all police and all firemen so that, and at each station you have that basic kit there so they can respond to some of these issues within the communities if needs be.
Because I say people get gunshot wound, gunshot, even by police, and them just lift them up and just throw them in like iron goat in the back of the police vehicle. That need to cut out, because when if you remove the threat, you're supposed to turn and give that person assistance as a police. But them just hold the person and throw you in. And it too brutal, it need to cut out. What your government do, if you farm back the next government, you don't need to do something about that. What you would suggest you will do about these things? Are your government will do about these things? It cannot go along like that. And we need ambulances too. Ambulance not so expensive that we can have some ambulance and we can train some people A&P. We can do that. We must.
Yeah. No, I'm right. I'm right down that road or up that road with you. As I said, I think training the persons as to how to be first responders is critical, and having the units to be able to go and pick up the persons is an additional benefit that is there. Because if you had an ambulance service in an area, well, the problem in Jamaica right now is that you don't even have sufficient ambulance in the hospital, much less to then talk about having them in the communities. But if you had sufficient ambulance and say in St. Anne's Bay you had an ambulance at the fire station, and you had one at the fire station in Brownstown, if something happens to somebody in Philadelphia, the ambulance could quickly go across. The police that go across or the firemen that go across with it would have had the training in the CPR, so they would have been able to do the first aid and the resuscitation, and you may end up saving the life of that person. So that, as I said, was my proposal from when I was shadowing him, that we should increase this level of training of first responders. Because if you look at the studies in the States, majority of the persons who have like a heart attack and those things, and they call, some of them survive because of the response time, somebody getting to them early and being able to deliver the first aid. If you don't have the ability to get to them early, then your outcome is not going to be as favorable.
Oh, that bad. Right, turn back to the party now, because some people asking some question, yeah? Asking how the party moving on, as if it move on as a united PNP party.
We have our challenges. I am not going to come here and gloss over and that we don't have our challenges. We have our challenges, and I do believe that in any organization that you have, there will be challenges. There are some organizations in which they are able to conceal the challenges more than some. And a benefit of being in government is that government provides a shield for some of these challenges that you have within a party. So people respond to what is going on in the People's National Party now, and it looks strange to them. But if you look back at when this current Prime Minister was leader of opposition, one, there was a challenge to him as a leader. Then two, they put him on probation. Then three, there was a time when they came up with a diabolical plot that 3 of their members were trying to kill him. And a lot of people don't remember those things, you know. That there was a time when they came up with this thing that 3 members, they wanted to kill him and we had to give him increased security and all of those things. And then we heard that the story was fabricated and somebody ended up spending time in jail for public mischief. So these challenges happen when a party is in opposition, or they are more obvious to the public, because nobody is going to do certain things against a prime minister. For instance,
Yes.
Minister Montague is not happy that he has been placed at OPM with nothing to do. He's not happy about it, but he's not going to say anything, right? Because
Yes,
at the
yes.
end of the day, it is the prime minister who has awesome powers and can get up tomorrow morning and say, well, you're not a minister again at all, right? So you don't see those things. When a party is in opposition, they become more evident. So we are working, and what we are seeking to do is not to focus on personalities. So the first thing is that the leader said that it's a Big Ten party, meaning that any comrade who wants to make a contribution is welcome. Anyone who wants to make a contribution to the party is welcome. There's a space for you to make a contribution to your party and to your nation. At some point in time, though, if individuals decide that they are not going to come into the fold and they are going to stay on the periphery and try to destroy the movement will just have to move on and hope that they will change their mind and join at a later date. But we have to then move on and keep at the forefront the issues that unite us. Because we're not a party that is united around a leader and personalities. We're a party that has been united around a vision and a mission and a philosophy from day one. What is that philosophy? The philosophy that we are united around is that philosophy of creating egalitarianism, which is equality in access to opportunity. I was on Twitter recently and I saw where somebody was sharing something where they said a teacher decided to show that socialism doesn't work. And they said the teacher decided to show that if I were to give every student in the class the same grade, so no student will fail. That's what she started out by saying. So everybody gets a B. Whether you actually scored 100 or you scored 20, you got a B. They say after the first test, those who study hard, they got upset. And they said, but if you study hard, I will still get a B. Why study? And those who didn't study were elated because they're like, well, we never studied and we got a B. So the second test, those who studied didn't study. So the average of the class went down to C. So everybody got a C. By the third test, nobody was studying, so the average of the class went down to a D. Everybody failed. And they said that that is proof that socialism doesn't work. It is the ignorance of those who chastise socialism in thinking that when we say socialism, we're talking about the equality in the outcome without effort. What socialism would be in that instance is the fact that those persons were able to matriculate to the university, that equal opportunity and access to be able to matriculate to the university. That is what the socialist policy would be. What you get when you matriculate to university is based on what you put in. And I think that is a large part of what people criticize this thing about socialism and say they don't want it, is because they're thinking that we are saying that you should have the same outcome regardless of your effort. And that's not what we're saying. We're saying that the opportunity, the access to the opportunity, equality in the access to the opportunity, so that a farmer's son from St. Elizabeth, a nursing assistant son from Hanover, a teacher's son from St. Anne, and a doctor's son from Kingston, all of them should be able to matriculate to become a doctor or a lawyer, whatever they choose to be, right? This shouldn't be that one can get there just because of who their parents are, but it should be based on what you apply or you apply yourself and the grades that you get. There's equality in access. If we can get to that point where the PNP can come back to ground zero and reunite around that philosophy and that of social justice. And social justice simply means righting some of the wrongs in the society. So when the former leader said, no bastard, not there again, so that children like myself who are born out of wedlock could inherit things, it is righting some of the wrongs in the society. When we had the current leader as Minister of Justice, and he decided to decriminalize ganja so that the record, the police record, could be struck from the files of some of these youngsters. That's social justice. It's righting some of the wrongs that within the society. So that system that I speak about that has been designed, right, from slavery times to hold a certain set of people back, you have to put deliberate measures in place to right those things, to ensure that you give an opportunity to those persons. If we're able to do that, and if we're able to come with a platform around education, healthcare, national security, the economy, the labor, how we protect our workers. We have so many people who are contract workers who are working with nothing to gain. It's like the things that Michael fought for, sick leave with pay and vacation leave and those things. It's almost like those things have been eroded by the capitalist class in the society who decide that they just want to offer a contract and a short term to people so they have no benefit to get at the end of it. If we can unite around those things to uplift the majority of the people, then we'll be fine. And my final point on it is that the PNP has never been a party that only caters to one class. Our founding president has always said it. We are a class alliance. Those who are in the upper class who are socially conscious and want to contribute and understand the concept of equality and access to opportunity, they have a place in the party. Those who are from the lower class who have the same mindset, they have a place in the party. And those who are from the middle class, they too have a place in the party. We are a class alliance. But we unswervingly focus on uplifting the mass of the people. And that is what our mission is. So as long as we're able to execute and bring persons around that idea and that philosophy, then I think we will be fine.
Right. So them talking about local government election, because the last general election, it was a low, very low turnout, 37%, right? So them asked if the PNP going to unite that them can draw out 24 to the 27% at the poll in the local government election.
I didn't get that way.
All right, them say the general election, each time you have a local government election, you have a lower turnout. You have a lower turnout than the general election. So them asking if the PNP going to ready, if them unite and going to ready to draw out the massive to get turnout for the local government election.
Okay. You're talking about the turnout and whether or not we'll be ready to mobilize.
Yes, for the local government election, yes.
Right. All right. So we have been preparing for the local government elections, and obviously I can't say everything that we've been doing, but I will say a few things just to assure the comrades that we have been focused on trying to get some things done. So at the end of the last election in 2020, September, the party won only 56 divisions. 56. There are 228 divisions in the country. We won 56. So you're looking at less than 25% of the divisions within the country that we won. At the end of the last local government election in 2016, we had won 98 divisions at that time. Since that time, we've had deflection of Carrie Douglas and Faith Sampson, I believe, from Northwest Manchester. And of course, the councillor for Papine seems to be ambivalent at times about where her support is, because she doesn't caucus with our comrades in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. So the first thing is that we are trying to ensure that all divisions are filled. We've had training of all our campaign managers. We've had a workshop to train our candidates and to, bring them up to speed about the campaign in this day and age. We've done sessions where we have taken the photographs of all of the candidates so they have a package so they can go out and do their paraphernalia and whatever they need to do. We've got a media kit for them. So they have a design for a flyer, a billboard, whatever it is. They just insert a photo and they can go to print. We have done the data for them. Looking at the historical data, looking at the targets that they're supposed to set and all of those things so they can go out and do their thing. We have done polls in several of the divisions to show them where they are, what are the issues of the people, what the people are saying. we have committed to certain things to give to them as they get towards the election day. And so I think that we have done quite a bit in trying to get them to a state of readiness. There's still some effort that they have to put forward. So when I was growing up, they told me that you could lead whatever animal to the water, but you can't force them to drink. They have to drink. And so there's a step in the process that they just have to do. They have to get out there and do the canvas. They have to ensure that they have their PNP list. And they have to ensure that we're running elections, not based on emotions. Not that I feel that I'm going to win, but that I see the numbers that say I'm going to win, based on what I'm getting from the individual communities, the individual polling divisions. So it is more scientific in the approach, data-driven, evidence-based approach as to what we're taking. We understand that we're not going to be able to fix all of the problems before a local government election, but we are committed to try and get it right so we can win another general election. But we are also committed to giving a strong showing in the local government election by holding on to the councils that we have and by putting a real effort at regaining some that we don't have. And in those that we cannot regain at all, we have to pick up a few additional divisions in those.
Okay, good. And next thing though, I could just ask you another question. People them ask why them don't see your leader more vocal out there. More vocal, that's Mark Golding.
Well, I'm open to hear where they're saying that he's not vocal, because in the parliament he's pretty vocal. We try to share whatever he says in the parliament almost on a weekly basis, so persons can see what is going on and hear what is going on. We had a road program. The road program has been affected by the COVID numbers. So we have had to abandon that for the time being. But that was gathering steam and gathering momentum quite nicely. So we have done a lot to try and get out there. We're coming now with a Sunday night series on social media, where we'll have reasoning with him, where we are going to have the leader with a moderator and the spokesperson about the junior and the senior person, so that people can understand what our policy is in the particular ministries and different portfolios, and the leader's vision in each of those departments as well. So that we'll be able to expose people more to what it is that our plans and our ideas are. And, so we're trying to use the different media to get the information out. And not rely on one particular medium. But again, I say we're open to anybody who has a suggestion to make us to.
All right, because we're going to invite him here, Tell him for me, we want to invite him here because a lot of people in the diaspora and all over watches my program. So
okay.
we want to invite him here because the people them say them not seeing him, they want him more vocal.
Okay.
Like when the government was in opposition, everything them jump on. You understand? You hear them vocal up.
Yeah.
Them don't see that in the PNP right now, moving forward, going forward. Them don't see that. So them want them more vocal going forward. Them don't see that in the PNP right now. Them not hearing him, the leader, right? So them want hear him more and them want, see more.
Okay.
Talking about these issues,
Point taken.
Good. All right. So, yeah, man, we're going to wrap up now still. Yeah, people ask a lot of questions, you see, a lot of questions, but we have to carry you back because the time really run off far, yeah. So nice to have you, and we're gonna carry you back. We're gonna carry you back. It's a must. Yeah. All right. Then tell the leader we're gonna invite him on the platform. All right.
Blessings.
You want to say anything to the audience before you leave?
Well, I want to wish them a very happy new year, and I want to say to them that I hope their quality of life this year is better than in previous years. And I want them to remain safe and for them to look out for themselves and look out for their neighbors. Life is not fulfilling if you're just living for yourself alone. You have to live for others as well, to make sure that others around you are also surviving, and that, we at the same time remain our brother's keeper. So I want to tell them to be safe on the road, protect yourself from the COVID, and protect your neighbor. Respect, word is love.
All right, respect. All right, take care.
Yeah,
all
man,
right.
Give thanks.
Yes, man. Just talk to the General Secretary of the PNP, Dr. Campbell. Yeah. And we'll invite the opposition leader because the people them say they want here, you know, they want him out there, you know, outspoken up. Come talk up more and you know, more vocal out there. So we invite him. You invite him. So and we invite the Prime Minister too. Because we want you from the Prime Minister, you know. And we want you from some counterparts too. Because we have MP here, you know, on the PNP side. We want to invite some jail PNP and we have some people from UIC too. And we're going to invite a couple more of them very soon because we want to hear from everyone. You know. We want to hear from all of them. You know. Yeah? All right? I'm here. Lonesome. Keep it real. Yeah? Bless.